CD is an all-Schumann record, and it's going to be the Fantasy Kreisleriana and the Arabesque, which actually works out very neatly. They're opuses 16, 17, 18, so they reflect his work in a particular period in his life. You could argue that it's the greatest period of his life. I also love late Schumann, and I love the chamber music works from the middle period, but I don't think he surpassed these pieces that he wrote at that point in his life. So it felt right to put those pieces down on record at this stage of my life. These were sort of four of the most concentrated, tunnel vision days of my life, and I can honestly say I've never been more sort of exhausted as I was after the experience of making the album, because you feel like you put every ounce of your soul into every take over and over and over and over again over 4 days, and then afterwards really there was felt like I had left it all on the table, as it were. My grandmother was a cellist. She was a Georgian woman named Maria Callas, who was very famous in her day, actually. The Barber Cello Concerto was written for her. She played its premiere with Kusevitsky in the Boston Symphony. And we have in our house a framed letter that Casals wrote after conducting her in the Haydn D major concerto. He wrote a letter to a friend saying, "I just had the great pleasure of playing with Miss Garbusova, who is without a doubt the finest cellist I have ever heard." My parents, of course, were huge influences, Miriam Fried and Paul Biss, both violinists. I can't remember a time when music wasn't just sort of ever present in the house, and I just still think it's a better form of communication than words. Schumann is, in a sense, the composer who I feel maybe the strongest emotional connection to. I mean, if you think that a great performance of a piece by Beethoven, for example, sort of conjures up visions of the infinite, a great performance of a piece of Schumann really shows you the essential loneliness of the human condition. Recording is always an adventure, I guess you could say, because you remove the audience from the equation, at least from physically speaking, and then one is conscious of the fact that you're doing something for posterity, so it means a lot. It strikes me as a real pity that I live in New York, which I love, and that I'm away from it so often. Not that I mind the traveling, but sometimes I think, God, this is such a great place. I wish I got to see it a little more often. When I graduated from Curtis, there was just no doubt in my mind that I was going to move to New York. It just seemed like the right thing to do. First of all, because it's such a magnet for musicians. It's always going to be the city where I know so many people and I have so many musician friends. I really feel like Schumann is the most personal of composers somehow. There's a sense of even though it is absolute music, of the narrative of his life being poured into each piece. Well, in a sense, the great thing about music is that it is so abstract that one can attach any number of meanings to it. And I think even though it can't hurt to know the backstory, as it were, of the circumstances of Schumann's life when he was writing this music, music of the first order doesn't require knowledge of the backstory. It's the sort of the emotional content reveals itself without sort of needing to be explained in words. And in a sense, if you were able to explain the emotional content of the piece in words, then you wouldn't really need to play it.